And the question that we posed for Annette was about moving forward. What strategy is planned to move from where you are now to the next place? And what are the challenges that you anticipate as you go forward with that?
I think possibly one of the best things that we did in terms of our plans to move forward from where we are now is that both myself and our two literacy and numeracy advisors, way back last year, put their hands up to undertake facilitator training for self-assessment and external evaluation and review. And that really gave us an in terms of when programs were undertaking self-assessment, that we would facilitate and or note take at those meetings. So we developed greater understandings of the programs, but also of the self-assessment process. And very bravely, I felt, we put our hands up in January to actually undertake self-assessment of the work that we did in supporting our staff to successfully embed literacy and numeracy. It's pretty painful at times, and you know, we're still on a journey. We have changed. We are moving forward, and you know, Wilfred, something you said really resonated with me because the rhetoric in UCOL has definitely changed, and we've gone from the initial sort of resistance and negativity, and you know, we've all heard it, they should have done this stuff in school, I'm not here to teach maths and English, literacy, numeracy. And suddenly now we're getting phone calls, whereas before, you know, it was myself and my team sort of approaching and, you know, sort of sometimes badgering. It's now, the whole philosophy has changed, and people seem more willing to engage. And, you know, they're having conversations without us, which is absolutely fantastic. I think one of the key things for us in terms of moving forward is that the sponsor for our project is my direct line manager, who is our Director of Academic Development, and she also sits on the senior management team. So for us, since the early days, it's been quite good because we've had a voice at a strategic level. And I think our focus has really been on successful outcomes in vocational programs, but also in literacy and numeracy as well. And we've had that dual focus. We haven't ever sort of seen them as separate. We're now moving into our phase of handover, and by that, this is kind of a transitional arrangement where it's going to be approved by a Chief Executive Officer, but it's moving responsibility. Is that the right word? Or, you know, the further development over to the faculties, quite firmly. You know, it needs to sit within faculties. But obviously that's got implications for resourcing and roles and that sorts of things. There has to be an allocation in our plans for future continuing professional development. You know, we were really pleased that we got high numbers of people through the National Certificate in Adult Literacy Education in the first 2 years. And of those, 7 people have left. So you're kind of thinking, oh, 53, which is actually now down to, you know, you do the math. And, you know, we've got new people coming in, really great people coming in. But before they get to the point of, you know, developing skills in literacy and numeracy, embedding, they actually need to develop teaching and learning skills. And so, you know, they do the certificate in adult teaching and before they actually come to us. So, you know, the whole continuing professional development is going to be something that has got to be, you know, embedded within the plan. We're delivering NCALNI as it is now. We've now got an N in NCAL. And also within our plan is still to retain our cluster groups, our in-house cluster group training for literacy and numeracy. I think one great move was actually when we decided to offer the National Certificate ourselves, when we thought around a stakeholder engagement group, we actually joined forces with an existing stakeholder engagement group for the Certificate in Adult Teaching because we didn't want to separate out literacy and numeracy teaching. To us, it was all about good teaching. And so we have an adult teaching stakeholder engagement group, and that's really great because we can draw on the best of their experience. And it, again, you know, we're not seen as sort of separate in terms of literacy and numeracy. We've got great champions, we've got great educators in terms of the adult literacy and numeracy assessment tool. now literacy and numeracy is integral to, we have a mentorship program that, you know, I know that we're sort of collaborating with the IT on a staff mentorship program, and literacy and numeracy is firmly there. And I think one of the biggest things in terms of moving forward is drawing on the skills and talents and enthusiasm of people currently within UCL. We have 4 vocational tutors who are currently undertaking a diploma in adult teaching in literacy and numeracy here at Waikato. The power of that has been unbelievable. I've had 3 inquiries this week because these people have been talking and enjoying, and you know, they're talking to other staff and they're saying, Annette, how can I get on this diploma at Waikato? These guys are having a fantastic experience. And you know, and I think that it's kind of the ripple effect in terms of change, but I think that's probably one of the most powerful things, is that we've seen people who, and 2 of whom I have to say were very resistant in the early days to the idea and the notions around embedded literacy and numeracy, and I think probably were the dragged alongs to do the National Certificate in Adult Literacy Ed, but then suddenly, you know, the transformation was evident, and then they, you know, they wanted to go on and do the diploma, and you know, now they're just talking to other people and enthusing people. So that's absolutely been fantastic to see, and I think that was probably a key intervention in terms of organisational change. So we are changing, we are moving on, and I think possibly as a literacy and numeracy team, our days are numbered, and quite rightfully so, because I actually feel that, you know, at the end of this year, we will still need somebody, and that's part of the plan, to champion literacy and numeracy and to drive the vision and to keep driving it forward. And we're looking at sort of a 0.5, and you know, as we all know, we all need an administrator for this fantastic adult literacy and numeracy assessment tool, and that's a resource implication as well. But I think in terms of, you know, myself and the 2 advisors, I think when we move to faculty, our days are done. Yeah, we're out of there. And I think that's when, you know, we will know that we've done the job that actually we were brought in to do.
I feel like the little kid in class that wants to say, can I leave now, my brain is full. Maybe a few minutes to take just a few questions if there are people who would like to respond to anything that our panellists have said.
I just really wanted to ask the 4 panellists if they think they still have tutors who are still part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution.
Anybody want to bite that one?
That's a resounding yes from over here. The numbers are decreasing, and you know, the strategy that sort of we adopted early days is that we identified in every team that there was one person who was the main resistor. And so we feted them, we courted them, in some instances perhaps we bribed them. But you know, we could always identify that one person who, if we got them, we'd get the team. And I think that's the strategy, and it's been quite effective. Perhaps, you know, not, you know, the best approach to take, but you know, we find if just one person can actually change people's thinkings. We still have got people who are the dragged alongs, or you know, my line manager says I've got to do this. But hopefully, you know, because as I say, you know, things are changing, people's attitudes are changing, and people are actually seeing the real value. If not in terms of embedded literacy and numeracy, in terms of reawakening a dialogue and a conversation about teaching and learning. And I feel that's the biggest single thing in terms of the embedded literacy and numeracy projects that have happened across the sector, is that people are really talking about our core business of teaching and learning. And I'm seeing it's reawakening people's passion for teaching and learning in ways that I didn't see 3 or 4 years ago, I've got to be honest. Yeah.
You know, sometimes we talk about the distinction between management and leadership, and one of the kind of cliches that I've heard thrown out about that is that managers have their eye on the ball and leaders have their eye on the horizon. Clearly we need both managers and leaders, and clearly we are in the presence today of people who genuinely are leaders in their institutions, and not only within their institutions but within the broader field in which we're engaged here in Aotearoa. And I think when we take it to that level, it's pretty legitimate to say that these people are also leaders on a global scale. Because what's happening with these processes here in Aotearoa in many ways is leading what's happening elsewhere in the world as well. So I'd really like to ask you to join with me in thanking these people for sharing their experience today.